What can fans of the All In Podcast expect with your product in the future?
With PodcastAI, because we have all the transcripts for a podcast, we actually have the timestamp of every single word, and a word can be turned into a phoneme and a viceme, meaning essentially how the mouth moves with the word. You can imagine putting on like Apple's Vision Pro or any VR system and actually being at the table with the four besties, let's say if we're talking about All In, and with the new Gaussian splatter tools, we'll be able to actually create these really amazing models pretty fast. And so imagine you put this thing in, you're at the poker table with the four of them, you actually feel like you're there, and they are essentially reenacting the podcast episode and looking at the right person, because we can actually determine that, and really enacting the podcast.
The same podcast, like it's going to be like the same script. It's just going to be run through your program, and then the viewer, the fan will be able to watch it in VR and actually be at the table with the besties as they do the podcast, but they're actually like interacting with each other, yelling at each other. That's insane. That sounds so cool. For me, I always watch it on YouTube. I think it's, way better than just listening to the audio. But the VR sounds way better than the YouTube. That sounds amazing.
And all you need is actually the audio to do that. But it gets better than that. Like right now we have on our show portals that we generate those websites, you have the ability to chat with the AI hosts. And so we can actually integrate that so that they're having the podcast and you can interrupt and say, hey, what about this? They'll turn towards you and go back and forth with you. And then you can just say, okay, carry on. And they'll just continue doing the episode.
So you can just kind of interrupt the podcast and be like, hey, Chamath, didn't you say something different last week? And he would turn to you and be like, no, that's not what I said. Got it. And you just...
And he would have
with them.
Correct. And he would have the perfect recall.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is this is all happening virtually. You just say resume and it's really like you're there.
Yeah, and you could have them like it's Prever touched on a topic briefly, but you wanted to hear more, and you could ask him more. And because there's such a bank of all-in content and like all of his thoughts on so many previous topics are there in the library, he'd be able to tell you what he thinks. Wow.